There is a force that governs all markets. This powerful yet invisible force is so monumental that those who understand it and are able to interpret it have within their grasp a path to unlimited wealth. To illustrate this point, I want to tell you a little story about an incident that happened a long time ago. Many, many years ago, in a much simpler time, there sat a humble store in the center of a rural town. This shop did not sell many fancy or exotic items, but it did sell the necessities the townspeople needed to survive, with the most popular item being milk. The milk was supplied by a local farmer and his 10 cows. Each day, he would supply the store with approximately 60 gallons of milk. There was nothing particularly special about this milk, but the people of the town became accustomed to drinking it each day. As the farmer grew older, he began to grow tired of life on a farm. Not wanting to retire completely, he came up with a simple solution. He would sell half his cows and keep the 5 remaining on his farm. This way, he could still sell some milk, but he wouldn't have to work as hard each day. Rather than sending 60 gallons of milk a day to the store, he informed the shopkeep that he would only be receiving 30 gallons a day. Now, what's important to remember is that the people of this town loved their milk. They had gotten so used to having it each morning. With half the supply of milk at his general store, the shopkeep began to sell out of milk quickly. Noticing what was happening, he soon began to raise the price of milk. With demand consistent and supply limited due to the farmer's decision, the price of milk continued to rally each and every day. Pretty soon, people began to buy milk even though they didn't even like it. These speculators were merely buying milk in hopes of later flipping it to someone else at an even higher price. Eventually, word spread of this milk frenzy, and other farmers from neighboring towns began to deliver milk to the general store, and soon prices returned to normal levels. So what is this force that governs all markets? It is the force of supply and demand. This is the core of what makes markets move up or down. At the general store that we just spoke about, there was a consistent supply of milk at 60 gallons a day. When the supply of milk was cut by the farmer's decision to sell some of his cows, the price of milk skyrocketed. This is because the supply-demand dynamic is what determines price. If demand is consistent, a reduction of supply will lead to higher prices. If demand increases with consistent supply, prices will rise as well. Conversely, if supply is increased with consistent demand, prices will have to drop. And if supply is consistent but demand decreases, prices will have to fall to counteract the decrease in demand. Sometimes people get confused. They think, well, this stock went up because it has a low PE ratio. Or this stock blasted off because the CEO is a genius. Or this stock rose in price because everyone uses its products. While all this may be true, the core reason as to why a stock is rallying is simply because there is an increase in demand. If this surge in demand is met with consistent or diminishing supply, then prices must rise. It could be that the CEO really is a genius, and thus his innovative thinking is causing an increase in demand on this stock. Or it could be that the company's products really are amazing, and thus shrewd investors are gobbling up their shares. Thus, there is an increased demand, and this leads to increased prices. In the end, the reason really doesn't matter. It's all about supply and demand, and the impact this dynamic has on price. Remember, increased demand with consistent or decreased supply will lead to higher prices, and decreased demand with consistent or increased supply will lead to lower prices. All of this highlights why it's so important to monitor what large funds and institutions are doing. If your cousin Mike buys a stock, that's not going to move it. It is the large, consistent buying that moves a stock. As William O'Neill would say when he saw a stock under massive accumulation, that's not Aunt Susie buying. Large funds running billions of dollars can really affect the price of a stock due to their massive purchasing power. It's plain to see right there in the chart. The large skyscraper volume is not your friends or relatives buying. It's funds and institutions putting their money to work. When a manager or managers with this type of purchasing power decide to come into a stock that has a finite number of shares, that buying will ultimately lead to large increases in price. Conversely, when heavy selling comes into a market without adequate demand to cover the supply, prices will drop until buyers are motivated to purchase shares at what they deem reasonable levels. All of this leads us to one very logical but extremely important conclusion. As long as there are markets that are governed by the laws of supply and demand, booms and busts will continue to happen, and those who understand this dynamic and study the lessons of the past will continue to profit off this cycle.